This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Ever wondered how you could turn your side hustle into a full-time gig and spend more time together?
Hi, I'm Vicki, a #1 best-selling author.
And I'm John, a retired Los Angeles police officer. Welcome to Dig the Well, where we help couples navigate the world of business.
We've been married for 35 years, and because we built a successful side business, John retired 9 years earlier than he originally planned from the Los Angeles Police Department after 25 years on the job. Now we spend more time together, and we want to help couples like you do the same.
Join us as we help you overcome common obstacles, and we show you how to make extra income without sacrificing family time.
Ready to dig deep and build your well? Let's get started. Hello. So excited to have you with us on Dig the Well. We have a very special guest on this episode, our very own firstborn daughter. Well, firstborn, and she's our daughter. Misa Downey. Yay. Welcome, Mies. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here with you guys and support your podcast.
Thanks.
We're so glad you said yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to get into some questions for Misa, but I was going to give a tiny bit about her because she's a humble person. I'm thinking she probably wouldn't want to talk about herself. But so she went to high school, was a valedictorian, and then went on to UCLA, and now is in medical device sales, doing very well. I don't know if most of you know what that means if you're a 1099 employee, or not an employee, it's not an employee, sorry, 1099 individual, right? You're an independent contractor. And that is very much having your own business. You're having your own business. And also she has other businesses on the side as well, always has, since as long as I can remember. And we're excited to have her on here because, this podcast is all about business, entrepreneurship, and marriage and family and all the things. So we're excited you're here once again, Mies. So Dad's going to hit you with the first question.
All right. So the first question here is, what was it like growing up as the firstborn in a family of entrepreneurs, and how has that influenced your own goals?
Yeah, I love that question because I think a lot of people don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. So it's a little bit foreign to a lot of people nowadays. I think that's changed a little bit with social media. But for me, growing up in that kind of environment, what you guys modeled was a lot of time freedom and a lot of, financial freedom too. But as a child, what you notice is that your parents are always around. So then as I went into the workplace, obviously I was realistic that, you have to work for a boss at some point, or most people do, but that I never wanted that to be my end goal. And so it's interesting because I always just had that mindset. I think I didn't notice that other people didn't have that mindset until I was much older, probably after college, when I realized that some people really did love to just clock in and clock out. And I really hated to clock in and clock out. And I really wanted to not have someone telling me when I could go on a vacation or how long I could go on a vacation, or if I could add an extra day to a family trip. So I think that was definitely something that you guys modeled. And that's something that I picked up on probably without realizing it until I was old enough to see that in the workplace.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think a lot of people don't realize that what they do in their kids watch that, they see that. From an early age, and it really molds them and affects their lives. And we've always thought that was important, that you guys saw us as what you just said, being entrepreneurs, being kind of in charge of our own destiny, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And you can see that it has influenced you, which is great because it makes you almost unhireable.
Exactly. You start to see what you want, and then you really fine tune what you'll accept
Yeah.
out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that I just, even getting into medical device sales, as you mentioned, I started that a little bit later in life compared to a lot of people starting other careers. It wasn't straight out of college. It was 10 years later about. And even with that, I was looking at my options saying, nope, I don't want that. Nope, I don't want that. And it's funny because I've actually seen people who did accept certain roles of those. And it's not to say one's better than the other, but people that accepted some of those roles that have not loved the environment, didn't love that W-2 employee feel where, hey, you got to do this training, you have to do this, you have to do that. You're always on their time. And I've talked to other competitive reps that I work with in my territory, and they've said like, hey, do you have to have this or that? And I'm like, no, I set my schedule. There's certain things we all have to do and get done, but I get to choose how I get those done.
Yeah,
love it.
That's important. That's so important. And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, was to show people that they do have options. Even if you are a W-2 employee and you have a boss and you have a conventional job, doesn't mean that you don't have other options available to you. Doesn't mean that you have to quit your job. By all means,
Right.
that's not part of it. But at least it gives you an option to do something else on your own, which is now all you do, basically. And it's cool that you did it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Love it. Love it. We bred unemployability into you. I tell people I'm unemployable.
It's kind of funny because I learned that quickly at the first big job I had, that I didn't appreciate when, I mean, obviously I wasn't like a spoiled, rotten child, so I understood, my role, but I just really didn't like that lack of flexibility. That was like, nope, your time off was approved for this. You cannot extend it even one day. And I'm like, really? Wow. Like, that's crazy. Even though I have that time, I had accrued time, but they just, it's so structured. It's so cut and dry. And that's not what you guys modeled. You guys modeled was like, oh, okay, well, guess what? We still can do this. And the business is okay. And this is okay because someone else is running this. And you just make it work.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's life. Life is that, like stuff does come up.
Yeah. Let's touch on that. And it's nothing bad about the company. It was Sprinkles Cupcake is what you're referring to. Cupcakes, right? You're referring to your manager. And how about, I remember the times you either texting or calling me, letting me know I'm having to go in at 3 a.m. because the baker is calling in sick or something, right? Yeah. You had all of that on top of all the things you just talked about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was salaried. So I was the only salaried person at that location at the time. So I didn't really have any other backup help. So, if anyone, I managed the kitchen, I managed the front of house, back of house, and the managers. So, and unfortunately at that time, I was the only salaried person. It was a new location and they hadn't hired an assistant manager for me. So what that meant was I was the only one that could pick up the slack if other people called out. And sometimes, someone else, if you had, let's say, somebody out front, you can call somebody else in on their day off. Maybe they'll come in, but they don't have to. Again, they're an employee, so they're allowed to not have to come in. They don't have to show up. It wasn't their scheduled shift, but I do.
Right.
So sometimes that meant like a 14-hour day. And I remember we had a large catering event one time and I was literally like sleeping with the cupcakes because I needed a break. And we had to store cupcakes, and I'm trying to just get a break where I can because I was there all day helping out.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I can see why you wanted to break free from that. Yeah. And that is what this podcast is all about. All right. I get to ask a question. How, now that you're newly married, let's talk about that. Just married in June. How exciting. How do you envision balancing family life with running your own business in the future? I know we've talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I could take a lot of tips from you. Specifically, you, mom, obviously. And I think that a business, there's so many things. So a business can be extremely difficult, like more work, in fact, and something that sometimes you caution people just so that they're aware, like if you own your own business, you are responsible for the success of it. So that means you have to be driven, you have to be committed to it. There has to be kind of no other option in your mind. Maybe you have something else. Maybe you work a regular job on the side, but you're committed to making this successful. So I think that can be a lot on your shoulders, but on the flip side, you can then create the life that you want. So if you were like for me, don't have kids yet, want to have kids, want to have a family. So what was modeled was exactly that. You were home with us, you took care of us, you were there all the time, but then you also had business on the side or other jobs on the side and then a business on the side, which allowed you that freedom, allowed you to be around the kids, us, John and I, all the time. So that's what I want. That's what I'm looking to create, is something that, especially now while I don't have kids, something that I can create now, lay the groundwork, lay the foundation, work really hard, not to say you won't later, but your hands might be pretty full.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. But I think that's something great about business ownership, being an entrepreneur, is that you are able to do that. You're not at somebody else's beck and call. And especially with a lot of businesses out there, where you're not necessarily tied to a physical location or going in somewhere. One of the other businesses that I have that you guys also share in, that we don't have to show up to a physical location to be successful. So that's something that's huge too. I kind of have both, where I have the device sales, where I do have to show up at times in order to, make money, make that successful, but then also something on the side too, where I don't. And I think that lends well to a family, especially for a mom who in the beginning is the one, that has more demand maybe on them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Love all of that. And yeah, like Prestige, we talked about Prestige in a previous episode. So if you haven't watched that, listen to it, go back and watch one of our first 5 episodes. But it was a lot of work. We were tied to it. And when we found a different business where, like you just said, Mies, we don't have to go in, we don't have a physical location. It basically runs itself. With the website and the company shipping direct to the consumer, us not having to do that, or inventory, everything. It's amazing. So you do have to pick the right business, and I'm excited for you to start your family. So
and that's part of the family right there in the background.
Yeah, we're hearing little Tanky, and that's okay. That's what's so cool. He's family too. Tanks are Misa's little white Shiba Inu, and he's listening and paying attention.
Yeah. Trying to answer right now.
Yeah. Oh, there he goes. Yeah.
And some of these questions are you've answered, or you've touched on a lot of different points on some of the questions that we've had that we wanted to ask you. So it's going to sound a little bit redundant, but here's one. What are some key lessons you've taken from watching us navigate business challenges that you apply? Let me read that again. What are some key lessons you've taken from watching us navigate business challenges that you plan to apply to your own life and business?
Yeah, that's a good one. The biggest one, I think I would say, is the entrepreneur roller coaster, as we call it, which is just the ups and downs of business. And that's something that, luckily, again, I feel super fortunate to have had you guys lead the way for me and create this, I wouldn't say expectation, but just, for me, it was without any kind of pressure, though. It was just like, no, that's what I'm going for. That's the kind of life I want to create. But I also had the benefit of seeing the ins and outs through you guys, which I think is definitely something new entrepreneurs who have maybe family who have only been employees aren't really aware of. And what I mean by entrepreneur roller coaster is just month to month, there can be changes, fluctuations in business. Sometimes you have a great month. Sometimes you don't have a great month. Sometimes outside sources come in and affect you that you really can't plan for. For me, an example in medical devices was COVID. And I work in the operating room, so I'm in surgery, and I do elective procedures, specifically total joint replacement. So when that all happened, nobody could plan for that. And elective procedures were basically cut. It wasn't a necessary thing. It was something they were trying to protect people. So we don't need extra people in the OR, yada, yada, yada. But what that led to was obviously a dip in income that wasn't planned for. So I think that's a huge lesson and something that could really rock you if you aren't prepared for that. And so that's something I will definitely take into the future. And at least with my business, and I think most businesses this way, you see kind of how you did that month before you actually receive the income for the month. So you're able to plan. So another lesson is just planning, being, having that forethought to not just, oh, yay, I'm making this, I'm making that, or whatever. I mean, if you have a great month, you're feeling great. You maybe want to celebrate, but just preparing for those times where it might not be. And hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully all you business owners out there are just doing great. But the reality is that we're going to probably have slumps, and it doesn't necessarily mean things are horrible. It's just a lower month. So I think that's something. And then along with the planning, and the other thing I was going to say, and now I've forgotten it completely.
That's
Maybe
okay.
It'll come back to me as we keep talking.
Yeah, you brought up some good.
The entrepreneur.
Yeah, you brought up some good points.
Yeah, the entrepreneur roller coaster is definitely a real deal. Yeah. And I'm so glad you learned that, because it's so true. I think a lot of entrepreneurs quit the minute they have a failure or a dip in revenue or what have you. They're like, I'm out, because they don't realize it's going to be peaks and valleys the whole time. Yeah. It's just part of it.
That's kind of a challenge that we've had with some of the people that we've coached in their own business from home and running their own business from home. I think that they didn't have an example of an entrepreneur in their family. Their parents were W-2 employees. And I don't think they've never owned their own business before. And they don't really fully understand that it's not just a straight line. It's ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And you have to kind of roll with it, like you said. And you can't just quit when you're in a valley. In fact, that's the time to double down and really, really dig in and work, because you're going to hit that next peak.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Of what it was.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Tell us.
And it's also what I was going to say on the entrepreneur roller coaster. Sometimes it's your mental roller coaster. It's not just finances. It's not just income or money driven. You could have a really bad day because somebody said something to you, or, something was misconstrued, or whatever it is, depending on if you're a product or a service. But everyone out there knows what I'm talking about, where it's mental. It's not even, your business could be exactly the same or doing even really great. And you could just have a bad mental day and you're like, man, why do I do this? Do I really want to do this? I'm no good at this. And then you just have to pick yourself up. Like, we're all allowed to have those thoughts, and they're real. Like, they are really real. And it happens. Even when you love what you do, it happens. And then you just pick yourself up and you have a bigger goal, and you have your vision board or whatever it is on your wall. And then it reminds you, like, no, this is why I'm doing this. And then the other thing that I was going to say, a learning lesson, taxes. That fun thing that nobody probably wants to talk about, me specifically, because I just feel stressed usually. But Dad taught me to do my own taxes. So I took that on by myself earlier when I was a W-2 employee, which is a lot more simple. And just being a business owner, that's also something I was going to say that I think people sometimes aren't prepared for, especially if you are 1099 or if you have an LLC, S Corp, anything like that. There's a lot more to it. And so I think it can be scary and daunting. I even know people looking to work in the device company that I work with. A lot of times they hear that 1099 and they kind of are like, ooh, I'm a little hesitant. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. How do you get paid? What about this? But I think a lot of people don't think about taxes. And it's not that subject that anyone probably really wants to talk about, but something that you guys taught me that I appreciated and have taken forward and continue to as my business grows.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear. Yeah, definitely. I talk to so many people that have no clue about taxes whatsoever, and it's amazing.
They're just so used to having it withheld from their paycheck that they're
Exactly.
not planning ahead. And you got to pay taxes. I mean, that's the world we live in, and you have to plan for it if you're 1099.
Right. And the smart thing is to have your own business, even if you're W-2, have your own business, because it unlocks over 300 tax, the code
Mhm.
for entrepreneurs that is going to help you. So see your tax professional about that. We're not giving you advice, but
Exactly.
definitely. Yeah. So, okay, I love this one. Since you are, as I mentioned earlier, newly married, you guys are going to have kids someday. So, looking into the future, you've always said you want to stay home with your future kids. How does owning your own business play into making that dream a reality?
Yeah, I think this one kind of piggybacks or expands on a couple of questions ago, but especially a business where I can run it from a computer, my phone, etc. I mean, that just makes it so much easier. I have girlfriends who have actually kind of shifted in their career after they've had kids who thought, I'm going to go back to work. I'm not that stay at home mom. Love them. I can't do it. Was their mindset. Like, I need to go in. I need to go to like actually go physically somewhere else. And they've actually done the complete opposite, change their business so that they can work online and just have their office at home. So they're staying home with the kids. Maybe they have help that comes in. So they have that time to work and everything, because obviously it is still a lot on your hands and you're not able, especially in the newborn, even taught. I mean, it's just really a lot at any time. But I think, again, there's not a lot of jobs where if you are working a true job as an employee, you don't get to just say to your boss, hey, I'm actually going to go home and pick up my kid, or I'm going to leave work now and go take my kid over here. Like, you don't get to do that, but business ownership is perfect for that. And so that's what I see for my future. A flexible schedule. Again, I think it's just all about flexibility. And really, the only way I see that you can have flexibility is by being a business owner.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely true, because not a whole lot of employers will say, yeah, go ahead and take off, go hug your kid and then come back when you're done with that. And that would be
Exactly.
nice though, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question. What advice would you give to other young women who are newly married and looking to build a future where they can balance family and career?
I think they would, the advice I would give, because everyone's a little different. And again, like, some women are going to want to go back into an office, and that's just who they are. So I think the overarching thing I would say is really just digging down deep into the why for their family, and kind of a vision statement, vision board for their family. And then they can really determine, okay, does that mean that I want to have something on the side that gives me a little bit of time freedom, but I also still get to be me and go to this career that maybe they've established? Or does that mean, kind of like the other friend I was talking about, where it's kind of a total overhaul and total change in direction of, actually, I want to go 100% into business ownership and just pursue that so I can have complete time freedom. So I think really the biggest piece of advice would be just getting clear on what works for you and your family and what that looks like, because everyone's a little bit different. And everyone's wants and needs and desires are slightly different as well.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that answer, because one thing that not a lot of people know, Misa and I have done a lot of talking about unasked for advice. And so I love that. We actually asked you to give your advice here, but I also love that you talked about different types of people, and everybody's different and their situation's different. And so, how do you feel about that? Like, unasked for advice? I know this is totally off question, but what do you feel about somebody giving you unasked for advice?
I think I don't like unasked for advice. I don't think anyone probably really does. but I know I've been guilty of doing it. So I have grace for anyone that does, because usually it just comes from a good place.
Right.
Like, if your friends come into you with something and you catch yourself saying, well, I would do this. And then you realize, oh, they didn't really ask me what I would do. And sometimes, they're just venting and they want to talk. And sometimes they do really want your advice. So I think we all don't love it. I think people are getting a lot better about catching themselves.
Yeah.
And I try to, and then just having grace for each other, of just knowing especially whoever you're talking to, it's usually your friends and family, and they just want the best for you. And then they can kind of dial it back and say, I'm so sorry. Like you said, did you want my advice?
Yeah. That's become my go-to most of the time. I'm not perfect, but I'll say,
you're really good at that.
I really try, but it's something I read in a personal development book. And and it's glaring when you are aware of it, not giving unasked for advice without asking if they want your advice first. It's glaring when somebody doesn't, that, all the time, because they clearly haven't gotten the memo.
Right.
People don't want it. But I agree. Grace, definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Next question. What's one lesson you learned from our entrepreneurial journey that you think will help you as you plan for your own future as a business owner and parent?
Similar to a couple of things that I've shared, but I definitely think teamwork. And I think this applies to business owners or not, but specifically teamwork with your spouse. And that's something, Shane and I have talked about a lot. And we both have completely different careers, don't work together, even in the businesses that I have. And all in all, though, in order to make anything work, even for me to be successful in my businesses, I have to have his support in whatever that looks like. So I think what you guys really modeled for me was teamwork. And you guys originally started off working together in the business that you had with Prestige, and then dad went on to become a police officer and mom stayed home, and then eventually grew other businesses and now have come back together, working together again. But the theme running through all of that is teamwork. And I think that unfortunately isn't always the approach of couples. And I don't want to just blanketly make any generalizations about couples, but I think teamwork is huge, because you've got to be on the same page about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because ultimately, whatever Shane's doing and whatever I'm doing is for the benefit of each other and our future family and what we want to create. So I think that would be the biggest thing. I think that even goes into not just like I was saying about business, but just marriage in general, coming from the aspect of we are a team. It's not you against me if you're having a disagreement. It's the two of us are sitting on this side of the table and our issue is on the other side of the table. So how are we going to address the issue, not at each other?
Yeah. I love that you learned that or saw that in us. That's so cool.
And you and Shane do communicate well. So that's really nice to see.
Yeah, that is really awesome.
We tried. It takes time.
Yeah. And I've seen that, all through my life, see people like guys that I've worked with and just people that we know. And like you're saying, husband and wives they have their own careers. Nothing wrong with that, but they're going down that path individually. Husband's working his career, wife's working her career. There's not really any teamwork or any communication. And it seems like they kind of lack that common goal. And I think that's what we love about what we do, and that we can help people that have their own careers. If they want to build something that's a home-based business, that helps pull them back together again and helps get them communicating and finding those common goals.
Yeah. Definitely.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
Ride or die, right, Mies? Isn't that what?
Yeah.
We're each other's ride or die mate. Yeah. And that's you and Shane. I know you guys feel the same. Yeah. Okay. How has being part of a police/entrepreneur family, because it has been both, we've always had a business alongside of the police family life, shaped your values, especially when it comes to starting a family and a business? And I think maybe the operative word is police, because we've been talking a lot already about
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely shaped my values, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Shaped your values.
Yeah, exactly. Values.
I think definitely growing up in like a law enforcement household, there's a lot of let's see, there's a lot of like people think that looks like a certain thing. So people usually think that looks like a really strict household and that generally it's the dad, not always. I mean, now there's a lot more female police officers, but oh, your dad must be super strict and must this. And I think what you guys and dad brought into our household, which I'll take into anything I do, is respect, trust, and integrity. So, you guys always treated John and I feel like at whatever age, obviously there's times I don't remember, but I feel like you guys always treated us with respect and you also trusted us. And so by doing that, we knew that. And so our biggest fear was disappointing you, was letting you down. It was not like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble or this is going to be my punishment or yada, yada, yada. Like John and I chose our actions because the worst thing that we could have done was disappoint you because you had trusted us so much. So I think that's not very common out there. I think a lot of kids kind of operate just without any regard maybe, and it's not to say that like they're ill intentioned, but they're just like, hey, I'm going to do this because I want to do it, and they don't really think about how that might reflect
Yeah.
on their parents or what the consequences might be. It's like more impulsive, which is very typical of kids and teenagers. Like there's not so much reasoning at that age, but I don't know. I really couldn't explain like exact things that were done except for you guys just trusted us. We didn't really have a lot of rules like everyone thought we did. Being in a police household, I think that's just like a misconception about
Yeah.
police because they
Yeah.
enforce rules, but they also enforce rules that are generally known and just expected for you to conduct yourself in society. So it's like if you just do what you're supposed to do, you don't get in trouble. It's like pretty simple. So that's just
Common
how you
sense.
guys exactly. That's just how you guys treated us. And I remember like people now think it's shocking because they'll say something to you guys like, oh, your kids must have been crazy when they were teenagers, or like, oh, this. And we had our little things and disagreements. And I'm sure when John and I, and probably like, especially me with mom, was maybe harder to get along with. And it was more personality. But I don't think I really like acted out too much
No.
where a lot of the stories are like the teens, right? Like, oh my gosh,
Right.
your daughter at this age, oh, and your
Yeah.
son. And it was like John and I kind of like didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
But we
It's
didn't want
true.
to because it was just like we already knew in our heads, we're like, this is not even worth it. Like anything that these like kids might be doing, it's not even worth it. So I don't know if that made us kind of more mature earlier on or what you want to attribute that to. But yeah, again, I think it was just the respect and the trust, which then created integrity and just built that within ourselves. So it was one of those things like, if I'm doing this, then I'm out of integrity with who I am as a person. So obviously, you don't understand that as a kid, but those are things that you figure out later on in life of why you maybe acted a certain way. So that's just what I can say about
Love
that.
it.
And that's
Love it.
obviously something I would love to emulate with my kids and future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you will.
Love it. Love it. I know. Cause I remember we did instill trust in you guys. From early, just saying that whatever you do reflects on us. We're trusting you. Please tell us the truth. Always, we'd rather have you tell us the truth and it be something horrible than
Mhm.
you not tell us the truth. And that would break our trust forever. And you
Mhm.
guys just took that to heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember you also telling them someday, and I think a lot of parents say this, but when there would be a fight or whatnot, someday all you two will have is each other. So you
Mhm.
better get along. And I have talked to other families. Not everybody does that though, but you guys took that to heart too, because you're the best of friends to this day, the two of you. So it's pretty neat. And we have to thank our parents for that. Thank goodness we were both raised. We can't take all the credit because
but we will.
because we were raised by very similar parents, yet not similar, but same values and beliefs. So I think we never thought about that, on teaching you guys that at all.
Yeah, for sure. We're on the same sheet of music.
Yeah.
On all that.
That's really cool. There's Tanky.
We're almost done, Tank. It's okay, buddy. Okay, so the next question is, how do you prioritize setting the foundation for your business now with the long-term goal of staying home with your future kids in mind?
Yeah, that one's great because it's, I think, really hard for, again, talking about like planning, and not a lot of people think about what they're doing now to set themselves up. And that's something, I mean, it just comes with just the way people kind of grow up, the way people go through even the school system, XYZ work. There's a lot of procrastination out there. People don't want to do the things now. As Jeff says, our CEO and founder of the other business that we have, like mastering the mundane, doing those things now, the little simple, easy things now that really compound over time and set your future self up, that, not a lot of us are thinking about. So for me, with wanting to have that time at home, wanting to be in my kids' lives and there as often as I can, I'm working hard now to set that up. So it definitely still takes, a lot of, what's the right word that I'm thinking of? I mean, again, pre-planning, thinking ahead, a lot of discipline. That's what I was trying to specifically say. Because even now without kids, on the weekends, okay, friends want to do this, friends want to do that. On the weekdays, a lot of people want to go out to happy hour. I love to go have a cocktail. And sometimes you have to actually say like, no, I need to actually do this, work harder on my business, do something else that maybe is a sacrifice now. And they're just little things for the most part, right now. But that's going to set me up in order to have that consistent business, kind of what we were talking about before. Business can fluctuate. If you're starting a new business, you don't generally just take off right away from the start. You have to put a lot more work into it up front, generally speaking, in order to see that success. But when you do, you're so grateful that you did that at that time so that you could see the success later when maybe life is a little harder, when, God forbid, something happens, an accident, or you do have kids and now your hands are full and you're exhausted and you actually don't have as much time to go work your business. So I think it's just having that in mind and reminding yourself. And we all need those reminders. Like I definitely need them. And I'm not even a procrastinator. I'm the opposite. The way that, I don't know if they'll hear John's episode first or not, but my brother, who's 1 year younger, was a procrastinator. And he would laugh at me saying that. It's not like not demeaning or anything. That's just his personality. He just likes usually to wait till last minute, but he always gets everything done. And I'm like, it's on the calendar 4 weeks early and I've got file folders and color coded. And that's probably like firstborn traits compared to the second born.
So
but
true.
Even I still have to, remind myself to do those things because nowadays, if you've got free time, you want to go to the beach and you want to go hang out. And sometimes you have to commit a little bit more when you're a business owner, especially in order to set yourself up for the time freedom that you're searching for. Otherwise, it's very similar to being an employee. If you work your business like an employee, then you will still be an employee of your business.
Right.
Or you can actually choose to be the CEO, the leader, the founder, whatever role you play, and have that freedom that you see. You've seen those large companies or small companies out there, but when they're treating it at that level, they get to reap the rewards. They get to be on the golf course. They get to take the family vacation and things like that. So that's who I want to be, or at least have the option to do that, and not have to be so tied or maybe like desperate if I'm not building it ahead of time.
Right.
Love it.
before we had you guys, when we were newly married and building our brick and mortar business, which was really time consuming, but it was the same idea, that deferred gratification, right? We would, it's not that we didn't do things with friends, but we just didn't do things with friends all the time. It wasn't every weekend, like you said, every weeknight. And we just had that concept of deferred gratification. We knew, and like you were saying, you want to do that now when you have the opportunity to do it, for if tough times come later down the road, which is the whole idea of this podcast, which is dig the well. So you want to dig the well before you need the water. And that's what we kind of did. And if you do need it, you have it, or at least you're most of the way there. Because if you wait until you have you have some tough times and you need that extra income, or you need the extra time freedom to take care of like an ailing parent or family member, you have to start digging the well from that day. It's going to take some time to dig that well, and you may not reach the water before you actually could have used it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great connection. So true.
Yeah, and it's hard this day and age with social media and everything at our fingertips. And I think there's a lot of I follow a couple of like scientists like on Instagram, just because we have a lot more, again, at our fingertips, but you're able to learn a lot more. And they're doing a lot of studies on that in social media, even just online shopping, Amazon, right? Like you can order stuff and get it today, like same day shipping. All these companies out there, you see it in the retail space, everything is same day shipping. And some of that, you do wonder what we're losing internally by being able to get whatever we want whenever we want it, versus, you used to kind of save up a lot more. Even if you had the money, it was like, well, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, see if I really do want that. And you probably value it a bit more when you end up buying it, or you end up saying, actually, I don't really need that, or it's not really worth it to me for what I worked to get there. And then sometimes it is. And then you got to look forward to it. And I think there's some study out there I just read that it's the anticipation of something, whatever it is. If it's something physical or if it's a vacation, it was something crazy. The statistic that was like 80% or something is the anticipation. So if you're constantly just doing things, buying things, you're actually missing out on all of the actual like happiness and satisfaction that you feel, because you didn't get to do the anticipation of like planning the trip or planning that bag you're going to buy. What by the time you hit this goal and it's on your door, it's on your mirror, somewhere for you to see, and you think about it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to do that for myself. And I think this day and age, there's a lot less of that because people just buy it right now and it shows up tomorrow. And then they love it for probably a week, and then they don't treat it maybe as nicely if it's a thing, as they would have if they waited longer. And I think that definitely ties into business, because I think what you see a lot is not people really planning ahead and doing those sacrifices, because it kind of ties into that. It's sacrificing the satisfaction of buying it now, so same thing, sacrificing some of your time, maybe the fun stuff you would do with friends, in order to set yourself up or save money or whatever it is.
Totally. Like, and the whole appreciation thing. And this is kind of a funny analogy, but didn't you recently like take your nails off for some like basically delayed gratification? I'll wait for that later. I don't know if I shared with you, but in one of the businesses we were building after Prestige, that was one of the things. I wanted to cut back on expenses, and I had set goals for myself. We were going to reach a certain level. And when I hit that level, then I would put my nails back on. And I did it. And it made me work harder towards that goal, just for silly nails. But it's funny, when you do that, it makes a huge difference. And then I was so proud of myself. So you're so right. You're robbing yourself from all that, goal setting and satisfaction of a job well done and achieved. Yeah. So amazing.
Play little games with yourself in order to, and it is motivating. I think everyone just kind of, not everyone, again, it's not generalizing, but a lot of people, we're so used to a certain type of living because it's shown to us on social media. Every girl out there has her nails done all the time, hair done, makeup, eyelashes, like all kinds of crazy stuff that you're thinking, where is this money coming from? Like
I
the
know.
amount of upkeep on that. And so if that's not your goal, if that's your goal, cool. If that's not your goal, and maybe your goal is to save for a house or something like that, you can make those small little
Yeah.
changes, sacrifices that will add up month over month. And then when you reach something, then you can celebrate, another
Right.
way. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see, like, culturally how things have shifted over the decades and what
Yeah.
now is kind of like the norm. What that
Right.
probably years and years ago would just have been like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
you're doing on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. And I think we have one final question, and that is that one, right? What role do you see entrepreneurship playing in helping you and your husband build the life you both want? Ooh, both.
I mean, it's like the end game, right? Like that's the ultimate goal, I think. Again, because I've grown up with that, and the big thing is time freedom. Of course, financial freedom, but you could become financially free being an employee as well, in a sense. You can
Sure.
make very good money being an employee.
Mhm.
There's tons of great jobs out there, lots of high paying jobs. So you could earn quite a bit of money, but you don't have your time. And so to me, the ultimate thing is time, because you can't really put a price on your time, and that will go. And we all don't know how long we have here. And it sounds grim, but it's just the reality of things. And it's not to say like you're worried, it's just you're seeing life each day as making the most of it. And it's coming from that perspective of just making the most of all your time. And so entrepreneurship is to me like the ultimate end goal, especially for Shane and I and as a family. And we've even talked about what that could look like in the future. And if that involves both of us growing, and he and I have even talked about way in the future of this possible business or that, dreaming really big, things that are not happening right now or couldn't even maybe be the next step, but way in the future. And him saying he's super excited and he's like, hey, I could help you with that and I can run this. And he also sees the benefit of us both working together in that sense, like having different roles, but contributing to the same end goal. And just really, I mean, he's an attorney, so he is at, and he works for the government, so he is on their, our dime, whatever you want to call it, but
He's owned by
and
them.
then
Yeah.
some, because he stays quite a bit, having to get whatever it is done. So he's seen that side of things too. And obviously, for sustainability of a family, you're going to have something change. Right now, it's
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that obviously wouldn't be the future. So we both
Right.
definitely see entrepreneurship as like our answer.
Yeah.
Love it.
And you're right. There's a lot of jobs, jobs where you can make good money and you can live comfortably. And you can, and your entire family can live very comfortably on that income. But like you said, what you don't have is time freedom, or at least true time freedom. And I'll tell you, I was thinking, if for anyone is, if you ever go to the point where get to the point where you're on your deathbed, right? When you look back on your life, I really think that people are going to think, gosh, I wish I had more time, right, to do the things that I really love to do and to do it with the people that I love. I don't think anyone's going to say, they'll say things like, gosh, I wish I'd spent more time with the kids, or I wish I'd gone skydiving or spent more time traveling. I don't think anyone would look back and think, gosh, I wish I just worked more overtime. I wish I'd just done that.
Yeah.
So you're right. And that's
They've
one thing.
done. Oh, sorry.
No, good.
No, I've heard tons of interviews like that where they've interviewed someone who maybe is kind of getting to the end of their life and reflecting on their life, or they've lost a loved one, and what would they do differently or the same, or what did they wish they had done? And I've seen a lot that have lost a loved one that says, I wish I told them I love you more, because they just felt like they didn't say it enough. And now that they're not here, they're like, I could have said it every single day or whatever it is,
Yeah.
for that person. But it's pretty much always around family. And probably like some travel, or, I wish I had done that trip that I wanted to do, or like you said, experiences, but no one says they wish they worked more. And nobody says they were worried about what title they had or what their GPA was in college, like all those things that, at the time when you're going through it, it's so important to you, but you just don't have enough life experience to see what actually is important. And that's okay. And that's the time you're at. But ultimately down the line, it's none of that stuff. It's none of the like little achievements, like the check boxes and the things like that. Is what did you create? How did you make people feel? And how much time did you spend with them?
Yeah. And it kills me when I see people that are just, they're so into working overtime, picking up every overtime shift they possibly can. And I think someday you're going to realize that that's probably not the best thing for you and your family. But what are you going to do now? And again, it's that unasked for advice. I'm not going to say, hey, buddy, stop. You're going down the wrong path. That's their path, and they chose their path. And
hopefully they'll listen to this podcast and make a change.
And I wish the best for them. I just don't think that's what I don't think that's the important part of the whole show. Okay, so we're going to ask you one more question and then turn you loose. And the last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to someone growing up in an entrepreneurial family, what would it be?
Soak it all in, be a sponge. Because again, like you don't realize it when you're a kid, you don't realize it necessarily. And hopefully a person in that situation is really taking in those lessons, and their brain's holding on to every little bit, because kids are sponges just in general. So hopefully that is what it is. But I would say definitely it's not like you should do this or you should do that or don't do this, because some people will find their path along the way, but it's just really like soak everything up, because there's so many learning lessons that kind of, if you just open your eyes and ears and, actually respect and love your parents, you can learn so much from them without even maybe realizing that you're learning.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Soak it all in. Soak it all in.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff that you were talking about here, Misa. Yeah. It's kind of cool, because as much as we know you're my little peanut. As much as we know our little peanut.
And my angel. She's my angel.
But we've learned so much more. I mean, there were so many things that you brought up that it was like, wow, that's really good.
I love it. I love it. And if you love hearing and maybe wanting to learn more about Misa, give us your handle on Instagram, Misa.
Oh, yeah. On Instagram, I'm Misa_Victoria.
Yeah. And you can follow her there, follow her journey. This has been so awesome, Mies. We're so proud of you and thrilled to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us.
Thank you. I'm super proud of you guys. It's so fun to support your parents who have supported you your whole entire life, and then to have them go on different ventures, and they're just so committed to their business, to helping other people, and just sharing the knowledge that they've acquired. So I feel really blessed and fortunate that they wanted me to share my perspective and just what I've learned, because I feel like it's so little what I've learned and done so far. But I'm grateful to be here and support you guys, and I love you, and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, sweetie. We love you too.
I'm verklempt now. If you like what you heard, like us, follow us, leave us a review, share this episode with a friend. We're so glad you're with us today. Have a great one.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on Dig the Well.
We hope you feel empowered and ready to take on new challenges.
Remember, if we can do it, so can you. Keep learning, keep believing, and going after your dreams.
And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration or maybe a nudge in the right direction.
Help us grow this community of go-getters. Together, we can achieve greatness and get back to family.
Thanks for listening, and let's keep digging the well.